Nicky? Yeah. All right.
Oh, they were both very good. Shishkin is obviously the first place to start, really. Any trainer who's got a horse like this is a very lucky trainer, but you seem to have a knack of finding these very good 2 mile chasers.
Well, I don't know if it's a knack, but you're certainly right about the lucky bit, in that, you know, you were lucky just to have Sprinter Sacre. He was a horse of a lifetime.
Yeah.
And then as he retired, Altior came onto the scene, who would have, you know, been just the same, really.
Yeah.
He was very, very lucky to have one like that, to have 2 follow on behind each other. Now, I mean, whether we are going to sort of find 3, I don't know, but he's got halfway there, if you like, in that he's won his Supreme Novice Hurdle, he's won his Arkle. He should be unbeaten, actually, because that's all that happens. He fell over a hurdle at Newbury one day, first time out. But he's always been very talented, and he's always just looked a very high-class horse. He came from a point to point, but he is a 2 miler.
He's quite an active horse. When you see him out, like he's not one that stands out in a crowd, but once you see him move, you can suddenly, oh, okay, he looks a little bit different.
He has actually grown quite a lot this summer. He was still probably fairly unfurnished last year, but he's definitely bigger and stronger. And interesting, actually, that of the 2 horses that sort of developed physically the most during the summer were the 2 novice chasers, him and Chantry House, who both, Chantry House went the 2.5 marsh and then 3 miles at Aintree. And this fellow stayed at 2 for both. You know, and they probably they grew and developed more than I think anything else, nearly.
But are you looking for that to be the case? Because you like really delighted because you think they can be even better?
Well, I think if a horse has grown and got thicker and stronger, then there must be a chance they're getting to maturity.
Yeah.
And with that, they must be, you know, you'd think they should be better horses. Whether he is or not, we're just starting the fast work bit now. And, you know, to gear him up for the beginning of December.
And Tingle Creek?
That's the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you've just got to go down the tried and tested route. I know everybody says, why does Cheltenham mean everything to everybody? Well, not surprisingly, the objective, and it was with Sprinter and it was with Altior. The Queen Mother Champion Chase is what it says on the tin. It's the Champion Chase. So not surprising, that's the one you want.
So do you, in a way, work backwards from the Champion Chase?
But pretty much so. I mean, the Tingle Creek's the obvious place to start, and then maybe Ascot or Newbury, then Cheltenham, and then you've got your opportunity to go on from there to either Aintree, the Celebration Chase at Sandown we used a lot. Altior won it 3 times, I think.
Yeah.
That in fact wasn't a, Sprinter won it too, but that was an earlier race when it was then. Now it's, you know, it's coming as a Grade 1. So.
Yeah.
It's great to have it at the end. So it's the programme dictates virtually.
And any little tinkering with this fella?
We have just done his win since he came in. I think I was just concerned that he was just hearing noises, and we sort of felt very, very little to see on evidence, but you could just about hear it, and you didn't want to go and run in the Tingle Creek, find out you're making a noise, and then have to stop then.
Yeah.
So we got it done while we had it done while we had the time.
Yeah.
And so that's all good and over with, and he's on schedule.
We always liked him, didn't we? He always went well.
Yeah. We saw Jonbon leading the string. Very impressive individual.
He's a gorgeous horse, isn't he? He didn't look much like that when he arrived, but he's done I can remember seeing Duvan in the flesh, and I suspect he's sort of growing into Duvan mould. He's a full brother.
Yeah.
And he's grown into a very solid, huge backside on him and a huge neck, a very solid individual. You don't know, he could be anything. We had him just for a bit in the spring after he'd won his point-to-point, and we ran him in one bumper at Newbury, and I wouldn't have run him if I didn't think he was going to win.
Yeah.
Which he did very comfortably, and he did everything right. He jumped beautifully. It takes a bit of time to settle down. Everything, you don't want to do anything too new with him. It sort of just gets him a little bit unsettled. But just get into the routine, and he's as good as gold.
You know, I Am Maximus is a horse that we haven't seen a lot of, but my Drogo, he beat him at Cheltenham when winning a bumper.
He only ran once last year, to be fair. We ran him in that bumper and he won. Don't think he knew a lot, but he did that. And then actually we put him away for a bit. He came back and then he just sort of wasn't quite right in the spring. We never quite got him back. But I mean, he's had a good holiday now and he looks fantastic. Again, I just don't know what he is. He jumps very well. He summered with Hen Knight, and she's obviously schooled him. I think our probably strongest department could be the novice hurdlers.
Really?
Whereas I think last year we said it was that we started the season thinking that if we've got any stars, they're going to be the novice chasers, which luckily was right in Shishkin and Chantry House. This year, I'd have to say it's the novice hurdles that would get us excited and hope there's a star lurking in there.
Kincardine has the advantage at the moment. Kaz on the Raz trying very hard on the outer. It is Kincardine to Kaz on the Raz. Kincardine changes his legs and is holding Kaz on the Raz, finding plenty. And Kincardine makes a winning debut for the Queen, Nicky Henderson and Nico de Boinville.
I like him a lot.
Yeah.
He's a cave Tara, and I'd say he's one of the nicest we've had for Her Majesty for a long time. And again, he won his bumper very nicely. Jumps very, very well. He's another one that's just all set to go. I think they'll all start at 2 miles, and then they're going to have to sort their distances out and their preferences out between them. And you'd just like to hope that somewhere in that little
batch
deck of cards, there might be a star.
Yeah, and then you're again with the novice chasers. You see him like last year with the likes of Dusart. He's a horse that I see him this morning, and I'm straight away my head's going, what's that? Because he is that kind of horse, isn't he?
Well, he's been terribly unlucky. I mean, he started off, we went straight over hurdles, we went straight to Newbury, probably one of the best novice hurdles at that time of the year that was, and he was very impressive. Unfortunately, then had a horrible accident, and it didn't look if we'd get him back on a racecourse last year. But I just got him back in time to have a run at Aintree. Probably wrongly, I ran him in the 2 miler instead of the 2.5. And to be fair, 2 miles around Aintree was sharp enough for him, and he was off the bridle the whole way. But he finished very strongly indeed. He ran a great race. His problem is that he's only had 2 runs in his life. He hadn't point-to-pointed, he hadn't bumpered, he hadn't done anything. So he's literally had 2 hurdle races in his life, and therefore he's not a novice over hurdles. Yet is he ready to go over fences? He's still young and no experience.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to start him in a hurdle race to get the ball going again. Everything's going very well. He jumps beautifully. You could go chasing, but I'd like to get him a little bit more streetwise.
If he was then able to win one of those smart hurdles, would you be then tempted to maybe stay down the hurdles route?
Well, I don't think he's a champion hurdle horse. I think when we were doing that, say, with Bouvedere and even Altior, we weren't sure which way to go with him. I'd said to Christopher Pat-Pugh that, with Altior, you can stay over hurdles and you'll win the champion hurdle. You can go chasing and you'll win the Arkle. I don't think there was any doubt about that. And then with Bouvedere was heading down the chasing route, I said, listen, you've got to switch him because he'll win the champion hurdle, which he did.
Yeah.
I don't see Dusart as a champion hurdle horse. As I say, I think that 2 miles around Aintree rather sort of proved that
Yeah.
2 miles is short enough for him. I think he's a 2.5 mile chaser.
And then Galley Hill, you said, is one that you're excited about.
I do. He has had a wind up as well, but he was doing nicely over hurdles, and he was always a very, very exciting looking horse. But his work this time round seems to have gone to a completely different level. Now, I mustn't get too carried away. But again, he's one that's come out from Henrietta Knights, and before his jumping is sort of nearly all done.
Yeah.
He'd won a point to point.
Yeah.
So I think he'd be one of the exciting novice chasers, yes.
And what else novice chase-wise are you looking forward to this year?
I think I could see Mr. Coffey being a good
Yeah.
horse over fences. I really do.
He's got plenty of size and scope.
He's
about
got
him.
real scope. He was, he was messing around over hurdles really, and there's a fairly good, cross section of them that you hope there's again. Those are probably might be the best two, but I mean there are plenty of others that could come into the equation.
Craig Niche is one that won a handicap hurdle at Ascot,
Yeah.
and surprised a few people, but it was a comfortable success.
And then he was second in the Coral.
Yeah.
So again, he'd go chasing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and would be very much near the top of the pile too.
It's been a while since I've been your stable jockey, but I haven't changed. But an awful lot has changed here, facility-wise. You seem like you're forever not tinkering, but making it better. You've got a new carpet all-weather jumping strip, which means you can school all year round. You've put in a water treadmill. You've now got a cooling off area. So you're not standing still, are you?
No, I mean, we try and do something every year, actually. You say the carpet, then we put in the Wexford sand canter. In lockdown, we built a water splash for them to wash their legs off. This year, we had to completely re-roof the two big barns up the top there. That's broke the bank. And, you've got to keep up with the times. There's technology, there's new things going on. You've got to keep up with it. There's no point in letting the grass grow, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, no, it's fun. I mean, as I say, we try and have projects. Trouble is, most of the projects are trying to keep an old place like this.
Yeah.
You're forever re-roofing it, re-wiring it, re-plumbing it, re-guttering it, everything. And as I say, we had to re-roof the whole of those barns, but it's improved them dramatically, which I think is going to make a big difference.
One horse that we've got to talk about him because he's a Cesarewitch winner, and that was Buzz. Like, where on earth did you hatch the plan to win a race that you've won before?
Well, to be fair, he was out in the field at Charlie and Tracy Vigers's, and I was talking to I think one would say the Stafford family, because there's James and Nicky and Jess, and we were looking at him in the field where he looked as always as miserable as ever. You've never seen a horse look. He was better this year than he was last year. Last year he just stood at the far end of the field on his own, totally disinterested in anything that was going on. At least he did sort of join in with his mates a bit this year. Hasn't changed him. He stands in that box there and lays his ears back at you and pulls funny faces, but there's no malice in him at all. He's a great enthusiast. I think fair credit to Reggie, who looks after him and rides him. He's done a lot of the sort of making of this horse, I think. Definitely last year he progressed enormously because he was very well handicapped to start with. Shot up through the handicap, finished up being second in a Grade 1 at Aintree. Then we're looking at him in the field, and the Cesarewitch was mentioned, and the next thing I know, it's the 12th of July, and we are still in the field. And I said, well, look, hang on, if you're serious about the Cesarewitch, he needs to come in now. I mean, that's earlier than the rest. We must get him in, and he did a couple of weeks at Charlie's, and then we got him in here. And I did have to rush through that because it was just under 12 weeks
Yeah.
from the field to the Cesarewitch, so you hadn't got a chance to have a prep race.
Yeah, yeah.
We got one racecourse gallop in, luckily at Newbury, so it worked. Oisin gave him a great ride, and there we go, job done.
So where do you go from here with him?
I would quite like that Ascot hurdle
Yeah.
over two and a half.
2, 3, yeah.
Then you could see if he's getting that really well. Then we might have a look at going a bit further again and seeing if he isn't going to creep towards 3 miles.
Yeah, be a stairs horse.
He might do, and then he would be a stayers horse. It's just possible he wouldn't stay 3 miles because he's not slow.
And then last year, Chantry House, there was very few English trained winners at the Cheltenham Festival. But you flew the flag along with Jonbon. Chantry House was one of those that got the job done.
He did. To his credit, to the horse's credit, really, Dick Shorty was he was very impressive his first run over fences. Then he was terrible at Cheltenham one day, and actually, like Fusey Raffles won the race. He jumped appallingly, and we had kissing spines, and operated on him. And from the day of his operation, he won a race. He was back on the racecourse in 8 weeks.
Wow.
At Wetherby. It was extraordinary because I had to get a run into him before Cheltenham. So I had to go slap him between somewhere in that 1 week. I had to find a race, and we took him up to Wetherby where he won well. And then he was very good in the marsh.
Yeah.
And then, but he looked like a stayer. We went to Aintree, upped him to 3. He did that well again.
Yeah.
So we're now going to start straight down the 3 mile route. Hopefully at Sandown on Sunday week, in that Future Stars. And I mean, depending on how that goes, we'll see. That again will tell us where we're going next.
Yeah. Would you be tempted by something like the King George for him?
That would be if this all went really well at Sandown, because he was sharp enough to win a marsh over 2.5. So the pace of the King George, I think, is it won't.
Yeah, the track could be a good fit for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thinking behind it.
Yeah. And then in the same colours is Champ, who ran a hell of a race last year over 2 miles in that race at Newbury. Then it all went horribly wrong.
It did, and I mean, I think I know why. He'd actually already had back surgery, and his back has been an issue with him. And I know Ger Kelly, who'd done the original surgery on him, always felt there was another piece that he wanted out of there. And I think, to be honest with you, he put his jumping at Newbury was spectacular.
Exemplary.
When he got to Cheltenham, I mean, he wouldn't have jumped a hurdle that day, and that was his back. And I mean, he had to put him up, but he wasn't going to. It wasn't, it was hopeless. I think he put so much into jumping at Newbury that he'd just overdone it. So we planned to do as little schooling as possible. Yes, you've got to jump in a race, but he's had this surgery done, Jer's done it, and we're very happy with the way it sort of all feels. So he's moving great. The plan is to go to Haydock for the Betfair, which has always been a complete disaster as far as I'm concerned. Everything I've run in it's got beat. Well, Bristol to Mile always wins it anyway. So it doesn't matter what I run in it; they always run appallingly. But he has to go left-handed. Yeah. So he is a bit limited. So we think the Betfair is where we'll start, and we're pleased with where we are.
And another one who was a little disappointing, but we know is a good horse, is Mr. Fisher.
Yeah, but he finished up on a great note.
Yeah.
He put up a tremendous, it looked as if he got thrown on that day at Sandown at the end. He has to have good ground. He won the Peterborough last year, but he's got to get that good ground. But, it was a difficult year. It was an up and down a bit too. A couple of very, very good performances, mixed in with a couple of runs in soft ground that he just couldn't cope with at all.
Epatante yet to deliver any sort of challenge. Now she begins to breeze up on the outside. The final flight, a furlong run in. So Royal the far side. Epatante going through the gears on the near side. And it is Epatante who has quickened away like a superstar as they race up towards the line. How impressive is she? Epatante has just given Nicky Henderson a record 6th win in the Fighting Fifth.
Epatante, what news on her?
Good form. She worked very well yesterday. I am pleased with her. We'll start off where we did last year with the Fighting Fifth, where we started them all off, actually. You know, if you go back to all the Bouvedere years and Binoculars and everything, we've always started with the Fighting Fifth, which is the first Grade 1 of the year, and why not? That's what it's there for.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it always falls on Ladbroke weekend. You know, so it sort of clashes with all of that. But no, that's where she'll go, I hope. She worked very well yesterday. But, you know, with a few little tweaks during the summer just to, again, just to help her back, actually.
Yeah. Because she was so, like, she looked, when what she did at the start last year, you thought, oh, the rest of them are playing for second place.
And then it sort of went to pieces a little bit, and I do think it was her back. She was always just having a little problem with it, and I think she was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anything wrong. But then her jumping, which is always so deadly quick and accurate, suddenly wasn't becoming that. It was, you know, she became like any other horse instead of one that stands out. And, you know, she wasn't quite there.
Sophie, we never hear from you, but you see him every single day, and that enthusiasm, he hasn't lost it.
No, he hasn't at all. It's his absolute passion, as you all know. It's actually only a couple of months off 50 years since he joined Fred Winter, and I don't think a day has gone by that he hasn't thought of his horses, all the teams behind him, all the owners and the people which he enjoys so much.
But he just loves the game, doesn't he?
He loves it. Every day, every moment is spent thinking about it. The only time he doesn't is if I can get him away fishing in Scotland for a week.
Which is rare.
Very. 1 week a year, if we're lucky.
But it's something that, you know, he just lives for it.
Totally. You know, nothing gives him more pleasure than hunting out those young 3-year-old stores and then watching them through the years, hopefully progress on to something great. He's bought so many of them, but everyone is just as important.
I think there's no doubting your enthusiasm for the job, is there?
I hope we've got a few exciting years ahead of us yet. You know, with horses, when you've got horses like this, you know, it is fun. I mean, if you didn't, well, I think we've been spoiled.
Yeah.
When you've had those really good horses, if you didn't, then it would become not depressing, but it would become a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
You've got to be competitive, and you've got to be competitive in those big races. And we've still got to win a Grand National now. I could be 100 by then.